Hi, I'm María Rodríguez. I'm the president of the European Youth Forum. We are the platform of youth organizations in Europe, and we are the voice of young people in Europe, in fact. What we do is defending youth rights, and for that what we do is advocating towards the European institutions, both the European Union, the Council of Europe, but also with United Nations, to make sure that the rights of young people are a reality and that young people can live a fulfilling life, enjoying all their rights. In our work, we mainly focus on three strands. One is democracy and the civic space for young people. Another one is climate and sustainability. Another one is the social and economic inclusion of young people. Regarding democracy, what you see is that young people, we are really underrepresented in decision-making in public space, and we want to change that. We think that young people deserve to have a broader space in public life, that our voices need to be heard whenever policy making is taking place. We also want policymakers and institutions to deliver for our needs, for our interests, for our rights, and that's why we advocate towards institutions. So in our daily work, we relate very much to members of the European Parliament, with members of the Commission, in order to develop new legislation that can actually benefit young people. Regarding democracy as such, what we promote is the participation of young people in different spheres of life, especially on policy making, but also we want young people to be more present wherever, like in all the spaces, but especially that our voice is taken into account in an equal footing with other people. We want to speak up, so we also encourage and we train young people to be outspoken in public, in society, so then they can talk about their interests, their concerns, and we can make sure that our voices are taken into account. So we have more than 100 members at the European Youth Forum. Those are the national youth councils of all the countries in Europe, so meaning the platforms for youth organizations at the national level, but also the European youth organizations or the international non-governmental youth organizations, such as Scouts, such as student organizations, such as media makers, such as political parties, youth organizations, and they all represent different interests of young people. So we come up together in our general assemblies, in our statutory meetings, and in there we put together like the different interests of young people, and we decide on what's the action of the Youth Forum for the next years. So we do like really a lot of work to empower young people in the public sphere and also to channel their voices into the institutions. We are actually very happy that the European Youth Press is a member organization of the European Youth Forum, because that's also the organization representing youth media makers. It's crucially important to have young people engage in media making, engage in informing other people, because those young people actually can bring the youth perspective into this information that is shared. So many times we find that our interests, that our concerns, our problems are not even showed in the media. So many times we don't feel represented to what we are seeing online, digitally, by the traditional media communication agencies. Also, we need to give more visibility of young people that are actually affected. Why is this important? Because when we are talking about the engagement of young people in politics, in democracy, young people also want to see that democracy, that the institutions, they are delivering for them, that our concerns, that our problems are addressed. And it's crucial, this role, this link that young media makers do, and the Youth Press as our member organization in this case. I want to highlight actually the important role of young media makers, Youth Press, into the link with young people and to the increase of interest in democracy and also in elections. So now that there are the European Parliament elections coming in 2024, we see that young journalists, they can actually be the link to communicate in social media, in the channels that young people are using, and they can actually spread the information that is relevant for all those young people, to actually encourage them to go vote, but also to know really which are the options that they have in the elections. And this applies not only for the European Parliament elections, but for elections at any level, and not only when elections are happening, also for the daily political cycle, for just informing on what are the topics that are on the political agenda, to make sure that young people, they also feel that we feel that our problems are addressed, if they are addressed, that our voice is amplified. So it's crucial that the young media makers that know the codes of young people, they are also communicating for young people and about the topics that matters for young people. One challenge that we often face is that traditional media are actually not covering the topics that interest young people, but also they are not covering youth issues at all. We need youth-oriented topics to be more picked up by traditional media, and a great way of doing this is actually having young people inside the offices, inside the traditional media, to actually communicate about the topics that matters to us, because those are the people who can actually relate better to the generation. But in general, we also need that older people communicate and are interested about young people, because it's not only a matter of a particular generation, it's a matter of the whole society. So we encourage also young media makers not only to focus on new channels of communications, not only social media, that of course not all the information is flowing through them, but also to engage in traditional media. And I know that's not easy. Also in there we find this age discrimination that we can find in all the spaces of our lives. So we also need traditional media to make a space for young journalists that want to get engaged there. Among the work that we do actually in democracy and digitalization, we are asking policymakers for all young people to have access to digital tools and also to digital means. For this, we are asking for more resources for training. For example, for young people to be able to detect fake news, to be able to be informed, to have access to proper training at their schools. Must not forget that also not all young people in Europe, and of course not in the world, have access to the inner digital tools to have access to this information. So I think we need to make sure that everyone has actually access to information and to digital means. But also, again, further than this, the capacity building is crucial, and the role that media makers are playing in this, actually putting forward relevant information and trustable information. I think that's also what the policymakers, they should encourage a bit more, and especially in this case with young people that are media makers, they should support them better to do their job, and to actually be able to provide reliable information for everyone. And I think what is crucial as well is that in this relationship between young people and young people that are informing for young people, it's especially relevant that we can trust them, that we can actually have access to reliable information in the same tools that we are using. So that's why this role of young media makers is that relevant for us.